This video is brought to you by Warpforge. Just bear that in mind, full transparency. They sponsored me for a video on my main channel and I decided to do like a what is Warpforge over here on the Warhammer channel. Long story short, Warhammer 40,000 Warpforge, the card game, is just that. It is the Warhammer 40,000 card game. It is the digital card game for Warhammer. There have been other versions of this in the past, things like combat cards and stuff, but they aren't the traditional 1v1 competitive digital card games that you'd expect. It doesn't feel like Hearthstone or Magic or Tales of Runeterra or whatever your reference point is. This is a lot more involved than combat cards. I don't want to shit all over combat cards, of course. Maybe that's the thing that you're super into, and I'm not trying to take that away from you, but there's a lot more depth in terms of how they can represent how units on the tabletop or characters in the lore act in this game, when there's so many more mechanics and effects they can take and make use of. The basics are this: you choose a warlord and build a deck. Your warlord is one of multiple characters from your faction. There will be 6 factions at launch. There's going to be Orcs, Eldar, Necrons, Tyranids, Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines. There will be more added later, without a doubt, and there will be more sub-factions added. I'll come to that more in a moment. You get your Warlord, who has a set amount of health, normally 35 or 40, and then you have a deck of cards that you draw from, and you cast the cards that you draw, essentially. I'm going to use terminology like cast there, because my background is Magic the Gathering, so just bear with me if I use Magic terminology. If you're coming to this from like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Digimon or Pokemon perspective, I apologise. That's just, it's my background. You start with 2 energy on turn 1, and then you tick up 1 energy per turn, similar to other non-randomised resource systems as things like Hearthstone have shown us. Cards have an energy cost, and you can play them. There are basically 2 types of card. There's a unit that comes into play, and it sits there as a unit that can fight the opposing units, and then you have stratagems that are basically your spells or your non-permanent effects. Things that will draw cards, buff your units, search for more units, damage enemy units, that sort of stuff. So you have your models on the tabletop, and then your stratagems are your airstrikes, your transhuman physiology, and that sort of stuff. Every single unit has a melee attack and a ranged attack, although sometimes these can be 0, and you can attack opposing models using your ranged or your melee, and they will attack you back. So sometimes it's better to shoot at melee troops or charge ranged troops with your melee troops. Basically, the attacker gets to choose which kind of conflict you take on with each interaction. The aim of the game is to reduce the enemy warlord to 0 by attacking them with guns and melee, but of course your opposing enemy units will be attacking you back, and there's things like vanguards, where you put down a unit that blocks all melee attacks and forces you to melee attack it. I don't think there's a ranged equivalent yet, so you can still shoot over vanguards, but there are ways to block and intercept attacks, essentially. And then obviously every single faction has different units, different mechanics. The Necrons can resurrect from remnants, where their units die. You have to like double tap them like zombies to kill the corpse. Otherwise, resurrection protocols can bring them back. Meanwhile, Orcs get buffs if they attack, so it really pushes you to be super aggressive in melee. And Marines get benefits for being efficient with your mana for tactical gameplay. The reason I'm so high on Warpforge is not just because they're sponsoring videos over on the main channel, but I really liked the mechanics and the gameplay of Horus Heresy Legions, the last game from the developers are Everguild Limited. Legions did a really good job of providing a solid digital card game to play that felt like they understood and respected the original lore, the Black Library books, and the Horus Heresy setting. Like, cards in the game represented very accurately in how you'd expect things in the canon and on the tabletop. I'm really looking forward to them bringing this attention to detail to Warpforge. I'm a massive fan of Warhammer 40k, if you haven't noticed, and I'm also a big fan of card games. So the two going hand in hand is something I'm very excited for, especially with the attention to detail. Something to point out with the Horus Heresy Legions card game is that over the years they introduced pretty much every sub-faction you could think of. All 20 legions, all other non-Space Marine things, that's demons, the Solar Auxiliary, the Knights, the Warlord Titans, and so on. And then even like sub-factions that spawn later in the Horus Heresy, like I'm blanking on what they're called now, the Sigilites and stuff like that. So every faction in this game has a sub-faction. We've only seen Ultramarines for the Marines at the moment, and Goths for the Orcs. Further down the line, once they've put all of the 20 plus factions from Warhammer 40k into the game, we can then start to get sub-factions. Order of the Bloody Rose, the World Eaters, the Thousand Sons, and so on. Although, I guess Thousand Sons is our mainline faction, but you know what I mean. Red Corsairs versus Black Legion. We're going to see all the sub-factions come into play. There's a lot of room for them to explore. They've given me full reign to be as transparent as possible and honest as possible. I mean, I think Horus Heresy Legion's biggest downside was its procurement method. We had a shop that rotated, and if the things weren't in the shop, you just couldn't get hold of them. And you had to just crack packs randomly. I didn't like the procurement. I didn't really like the economy of Legions. I think it was the biggest sticking point, because I thought the game itself played fantastic. But there was obviously some arguments about balancing too, but I guess I was more of a casual player, just jamming Blood Angels and Custodes into battles and enjoying it. I think Warpforge has a huge amount of promise. There's a huge amount of depth available to it. Oh, one last thing I should mention is that Warlords have an innate spell that they generate each turn. So each Warlord you take has a different health, attack and damage stat for its gun, and has a spell. So for example, Marneus Calgar could draw a card each turn, where one of the Overlords can summon an Necron Warrior every turn. There's so much depth to the game. I think it really has promise to represent 40k in a card game that is true and is a fair and worthy representation of such a complex and interesting canon and complex war game. The game launches this year, and so far we've only been able to play 3 of the factions in the demos that they've launched. Right now, as this video comes out, there's a demo running until Sunday, till the 22nd of January. I'll link to it in the description below. You can click that link, download the demo for free on Steam, and give it a go yourself, so you don't have to just trust me that the game is good. Do I think people who are not super into Warhammer are going to get as much enjoyment out of this as I am? Probably not. But if you like card games and you like Warhammer, I think this is going to be right up your street, and it's going to tickle your pickle. Thanks for watching. Bit of a quick video there. Again, hashtag sponsored and all that. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Are you excited for Warpforge? I hope you are, because I want to make some content about it, and I want there to be an audience for it. So I guess I could just push to try and grow an audience, I guess. Make the change you want to see in the world, I guess. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Ta-ta for now.